Well, good morning. Let me ask my colleagues, Andrea, I believe Evans Poston is here as well. See Evans over there, and others, please come forward. As we prepare for Hurricane Florence, it's important that each resident of the city of Norfolk takes precaution and necessary measures to ensure the safety for themselves and for their loved ones. We're expecting heavy rain, unprecedented tidal flooding, and hurricane force wind. Possible damages by the storm could include damages to utilities, our electricity, our water system, phone service, and others, being interrupted and unavailable for a long, extended period of time. Our partner agencies who are with us today have been preparing contingency plans and emergency management plans. I do want to acknowledge the presence of some of our partners, Robert Boeing from Norfolk International Airport, Paul Giddon, Bond Secours, Brian Stevens from our chamber, Barry Bishop from the Greater Norfolk Corporation, Tom Holden, HRT, Lynn Zutenke, Bond Secours, Melinda Boone, Superintendent, Norfolk Public Schools, Chief Darrell Howard, Norfolk Police Department, Chief Jeff Wise, Norfolk Fire Rescue, Bill Burkett, Port of Virginia, and John Konak from NRHA. We have been identifying shelters in the city, and parking garages will be open. And also, we have partnered with the American Red Cross Kitchen for water and food. Also, if you have a need for transportation, please call our 757-664-6510. It's my pleasure now to bring forth the City Manager, Doug Smith.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and good morning. As I said earlier, I'm going to make a few comments about sort of what we've been doing relative to preparation, talk to you, give you some details about our shelters, the parking garages that the Mayor mentioned, and sort of how we're going to communicate throughout this storm. And then we're going to open it up for questions and answers, so from the folks that are standing behind me. As the Mayor mentioned, Hurricane Florence will be a significant storm for Norfolk. We heard the governor announce mandatory evacuations for residents in Zone A beginning this morning, so people can plan to leave for higher ground before we see the storm impacts here. City crews have been preparing for Hurricane Florence since Friday, addressing drains and ditches in flood-prone areas, preparing city equipment to handle storm damage, setting up shelters for those residents who do not have options to evacuate the low-lying areas. All city facilities, City Hall, libraries, rec centers, etc., will close at 5 o'clock today and reopen after the storm. Essential city personnel will be working throughout the storm. Tonight's City Council meeting has been moved to 1 o'clock today. There'll be no work session. We'll simply do the business items and we'll handle them quickly. The city will open 5 shelters at 1 o'clock on Wednesday. Those include Norview High School, the Berkeley Community Center, Bayview Community Center, Crossroads Elementary, and Southside STEM Academy. Berkeley and Bayview will serve as pet-friendly shelters. If you bring your pet, you must bring food and water and stay at the shelter with your pet. If you need a ride to the shelter, as the Mayor said, call Norfolk Cares at 664-6510 after the shelter is open to schedule a ride. Also, in consultation with William Harrell at HRT, all HRT bus service in Norfolk will be free beginning tomorrow morning through suspension of service for the storm. The city will open York and Bank Street garages, parking garages downtown, beginning at 7 o'clock tonight to give residents a place to move their vehicles throughout the storm. And thanks to Old Dominion University, they've opened all 5 of their parking garages for residents starting at 12 o'clock today. You heard the Mayor say it. Residents need to prepare to take care of themselves for up to 72 hours. We could lose power. We could lose utilities. There will be a point during the storm where we will not send out our public safety personnel and risk lives to come get you. Plan now. Get ready. Stay informed. Check on your neighbors. Help each other. We've been warned that Florence will impact the entire Commonwealth. As such, we do not expect much support outside the region for days. So I cannot stress enough the importance of personal preparations and patience. I'm in regular communications with my regional counterparts, especially city managers on the south side, and we are working together to make the best decisions for our cities and our employees. I want to reassure you that our city employees are preparing, and we are working around the clock through the storm and the recovery to follow. We are here. We are in this together. Help us by taking steps now to prepare. Help clean out a drain or a ditch near your home. You've probably heard us, you've heard me reference Team Norfolk as city employees, but you're on this team now too. This is going to be a team effort from everyone. If you haven't yet, register for Norfolk Alert for storm-related information. Norfolk Alert will send information directly to you, and you can choose to receive that information in an email, a text message, or by a phone call. Look for our regularly scheduled storm-related updates on norfolk.gov, Facebook, and Twitter. If you haven't yet, follow us at Norfolk VA on these platforms. We will also be sharing information, obviously, with our local media partners, which is part of the intention of this morning. So at this point, I'd step back and offer a chance to folks from the media to ask questions, and we'll give you our answers.
Just to start on the Zone A evacuations that are in place now, and this might be a question for Mr. Reddick,
Sure.
in terms of, are we expecting at some point in this storm, the way it's going now, for Zone B and potentially Zone C to be evacuated as well?
So, Jim, I'm going to let you answer that, but the quick answer is we can't predict that yet.
Right, so thank you for the question. The answer is that the governor's office and the Virginia Department of Emergency Management are continuously reassessing the need, working with the National Weather Service, monitoring the track, and if it comes to that, then they will make that decision.
Should people in Zone B today, given that Zone A was ordered to evacuate, should people in Zone B be closely watching the weather and closely watching the news?
Absolutely right. The planning assumption is always plan ahead for that next call. So if you're in Zone B, expect to make that call to evacuate.
And then as far as preparations, we've been telling people for 3 days now to prepare. We're now, 3 days from potentially the worst of this storm. Is today the day? Are you telling people if they haven't prepared already that they're already late?
I would say that along with preparing, take that next step to be engaged and really look out for your neighbors. I think by looking out for your neighbors, knowing who they are, the key message is that you are the first responder. Like Mr. Smith said, resources may not be able to get to you. So being able to be able to respond, be self-sufficient for 72 hours, and work with your neighbors and your block to really be able to respond to anything that comes our way.
And then just past storms, this isn't our first rodeo here, but as far as cars getting into those parking garages, what have you seen in the past as far as, do people typically listen to that? And, this time around, is that something that you want them, take advantage of?
Absolutely. It's a valuable service. A lot of folks really appreciate being able to park their cars in those garages. Huge thanks to Old Dominion for opening their garages as well. And Dr. Boone from Norfolk Public Schools typically open their parking lots. So anything that we can do to provide folks some safe haven for their vehicles, because we know that when it floods like this, that's damage to the property is really, really significant.
Kind of talk a little bit further on the flooding in areas. I know a lot of times we see cars driving through these flooded roads. Can someone speak to how dangerous that can be? And if you do see a flooded roadway, what people should be doing?
Please don't drive. Don't drive and don't play in the floodwaters. It's no coincidence that after a flood event like this, you'll see a lot of cars for sale, a lot of used cars for sale. The motto is typically turn around, don't drown. Don't know if that's going to be the case here, but you will certainly wreck your ride. The damages are significant, in the thousands, and so many people have totaled their vehicles, and it's just not worth the time. And if you think about all the hazardous waste, all the other things that are in the water, don't let our children play in the water. It's going to cause illness. Thank you.
To the parking garages that will be opening up. I know some people were concerned that some of these parking garages are in the zone that was, asked to evacuate. Is there anything that you can tell people as far as easing their concerns about parking in those garages?
Sure. So thank you for that. Higher ground, right? So typically, the higher you park in those garages, your car is going to be a lot safer. You run from the water, hide from the wind. So as long as you're not on the ground floor, your car should be at least safer than it would be at your own residence.
And then can you run down the name of the shelters that will be opening tomorrow again?
Sure. It's, ma'am?
Yeah, please.
Norview High School, Berkeley Community Center, Bayview Community Center, Crossroads Elementary, and Southside STEM at Campostella. Again, I can't emphasize enough the partnership that we have with Dr. Boone and Norfolk Public Schools. We are side to side on this. We are one. We're one team, and we're Team Norfolk. Thank you.
We get this all the time. We talk to people out in the field, and they're like, you know, we're not that concerned. Is this really something that people should be concerned?
This is something that we haven't, the way the forecast is, this is something that we haven't seen in our lifetime here. And the concern is that folks look at Isabel as the storm of record, and we know that it was just a tropical storm when it hit. The amount of rainfall that Mr. Smith had mentioned and Mayor Alexander, this is significant. The amount of rainfall forecasted in that little amount of time, no matter how much we clean out the ditches and prepare our pump stations, it's going to inundate our infrastructure. It would inundate anyone's infrastructure. So you take that in addition to the coastal flooding that we're going to experience. We will be facing some challenges, but we'll face them together.
And what are you and your team doing specifically today and tomorrow?
So I'll just mention that Mr. Smith and Mayor Alexander mentioned Team Norfolk. It's a culmination of public, private, not-for-profit, higher education, and military, and our houses of worship. And so we are following our plans, but we know that by pure definition of disaster and catastrophe, plans are going to go by the wayside. We have those relationships in place. And being a team isn't just a culmination of agencies working together. It's a culmination of agencies and people who trust and have faith in each other. And we've established those relationships. We have a good idea of who has what resources, the talents, the expertise that we all share throughout the community. And so we are leveraging those relationships and even looking at non-traditional means to leverage some of those relationships. Folks that are going to do something totally different during this incident than they would day-to-day operations.
And just for the people watching us live right now, what are some of those items that you keep saying that people need to have to ride out the storm?
Well, one, again, like Mr. Smith said, Norfolk Alert. So there was concerns about folks not knowing what evacuation zone they're in. We've defined that in Norfolk Alert. We can't look and see if you're in there. We don't see that information. But if you don't register for Norfolk Alert, you may not get that message. If you have a landline, you may get that message. But if you don't register your cell phone, you will not. So we've already sent a message to Zone A, and a lot of folks got that, and again, a lot didn't. So we're going to send another one to Zone A today, and hopefully we'll be able to reach a lot more folks.
When this storm does hit, how often will people be updated?
Constantly. So there will be scheduled press releases that our public relations, Lori Crouch, will put out. But through social media, norfolk.gov, we'll continuously put that information out. And at the same time, with technology today, we're able to receive information from the community. So the more we know from them, the better off we'll be in sharing that situational awareness.
By any chance, are you looking for any volunteers? A lot of times people want to help. They want to be able to do something in order to help the city. Are you looking for volunteers?
All hands on deck. Yes, thank you for that. We need everybody, and the talents, the resources, and expertise that exist throughout the community that we haven't even identified yet. We will certainly be fantastic with Operation Blessing, and they typically, we have an agreement where they will assist with the volunteer coordination after the incident. So the CERT volunteers, the Medical Reserve Corps volunteers, folks with Mercy Chefs, all the folks with whom we have a relationship, we already know what we can assign them, those tactical responses. But after the storm, when we see, and we typically see a convergence of volunteers, of unaffiliated folks, we will definitely leverage what they are able to bring and partner them up with other resources.
Jim, explain what CERT is.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure.
So the Community Emergency Response Team. Norfolk has a fantastic program, a lot of dedicated volunteers out in our community. They are our neighbors. They understand that we are in it together. We know that neighborhoods need to be self-sufficient for at least 72 hours, so they get that training of what it needs to be a first responder, if you will, but being able to respond in a safe manner. So that's what they get training on, is disaster preparation, disaster psychology, the way the incident command system works, and how different first responder agencies to my left, how they operate. So again, we are all in it together, and folks are able to respond in a coordinated fashion.
I know we're a few days out, but are you able to speak in regards to the cleanup response after the storm has passed with all this water and what may be kind of like
Absolutely. So while we're making those efforts to mitigate as much flooding as we can, simultaneously, we've already reached out to our vendors, our contractors, looking at the debris management, how we're going to most efficiently tackle that problem. It's something that we have done in the past. It's been mentioned that this isn't our first rodeo, but we're looking at what additional resources we might need that we haven't necessarily needed before if it's going to be such a catastrophic incident like this. So again, having a relationship, a direct line of communication with the Virginia Department of Emergency Management, Deputy Secretary Brian Moran, Public Safety and Homeland Security, we have a direct link, and we're able to request any resources that they can provide.
I know you're monitoring the forecast, and just to kind of go a little bit deeper into, prepare for the worst. I mean, what is the worst at this point that you're seeing? Obviously, we have meteorologists of our own, but what are you preparing for to see?
Sure. Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that we monitor your meteorologist and the great information that they put out. The worst case scenario is that storm continues to strengthen and continues to arrive earlier. So if it were to occur on Wednesday night versus Thursday, not giving us that window of opportunity to continue making that preparations that we have. And again, the mixture of coastal flooding, the precipitation flooding, category anything storm is going to bring down trees, and with down trees come down lines, and then long-term power outages. So that's really what we're planning for.
And how many inches of rain at this point?
Oh, between 10 and 20 is what we've heard from the Weather Service.
And the last time that we have seen that is when? Never.
Right. Yeah. So the words being used, biblical, ominous, near record surge, those are the kind of things that we're really planning for. But again, we have catastrophic plans, and we're putting them in place. So we're confident moving forward. I'm confident in the entire Team Norfolk and what we're able to provide together. It's just we have to go into this with realistic expectations that this will be a challenge, and it'll be a long-term challenge. But the plans that we have in place, the frameworks that we have in place, and the relationships, we're able to do so in a unified effort, in a proactive manner. So when things do occur, those curveballs that typically come with disasters, we're able to respond and not react.
I would just get a public safety update if we could, and how you guys are preparing both on the police and fire side.
Good morning. Basically, right now, we are fully prepared for this incoming storm. We have moved assets to put them in better places to better assist our citizens as well as our fellow departments in the city of Norfolk. We have been through this before, just like has been mentioned many times. What we do want to make sure of is that people know that we will continue our normal patrols and up until the roads become unsafe for our officers. We ask that everyone please look after your neighbors. If you know that you're going out of town, contact your neighbors, let them know that you'll be gone. Look after their properties if you're going to remain. But we do ask that we look after one another, and we will continue to be a resource not only for the citizens but also for our fellow departments as well.
Chief Wise.
Good morning. As far as preparation, while we're staffing extra vehicles, our reserve vehicles, we bring in additional staff and just put more resources, deploy throughout the city. We pretty much know where it's going to flood, and so we prepare for that. We have rescue boats and those kinds of things, and it is possible that we would stop responding at a point where our first responders are at too great of a risk. So I just want to emphasize the point that people need to take advantage of the time now while it's still safe and put yourself in a position where you don't have to call 911. I can tell you that in times past, we know how people have taken advantage of shelters. And in my time, the greatest number of people that we've moved out of high water into shelters is in the neighborhood has 600 people. But the times whenever people actually listen to evacuation information, generally we're talking numbers of less than 50. And so it really requires people to take this seriously, get yourself to safety before things get bad. And so we're going to respond as long as we can, but there could come a time during Isabel, we made response for 63 minutes during Isabel at the worst of Isabel. Won't have to do that again, but if we do, we will. So, safe place, 1-1.
We talk about inches of rain. Are you guys definitely prepared at this point for water rescues?
We are prepared with water rescue boats and flat bottom boats and those kinds of things. So as long as the water cooperates and isn't too deep for us to work, then yes, we are. But our fire trucks, they can't respond in high levels of water. They're just not built that way. And so it's important, again, I can't emphasize enough, make preparations, get to safety before the trouble comes, before the water and the rain comes. And so, and you can expect that in addition to power lines, I know that's what the focus tends to be, but if there are trees down, there are going to be uprooted natural gas lines. And so if you see those kinds of things, stay away from it, stay clear of it, because we can expect that in addition to down power lines.
If you do see any of those things, what can people do? Is there a certain number they should be calling instead of tying up 911?
No, that's an emergency. That's a 911 call, yes.
Hey, Brian?
Doug, I don't have a question. I do have a comment on behalf of the business community, if I may.
Sure.
I just want to emphasize that everything we're talking about is equally applicable to businesses in Norfolk as well, especially small businesses, because small businesses are disproportionately affected by these type of disasters and flooding. And so we at the Chamber encourage them to do certain things. First of all, make sure that their emergency contact information is up to date on all their employees, because we know that communications is key during these type of secondly, make sure that they back up all of their data, either in an external hard drive or back it up in the data. Third, make sure that they prepare their business just like they would prepare their home. So whether that is sandbags or blocking off the windows or what you would normally do for your home, do that for your business as well. And third, if you need any assistance from a business perspective, the Chamber is always available to help you as well.
Great, Brian, great comments, thank you.
So-
you want to close this out?
I just want to, yes, I want to acknowledge Mary Miller. Mary, did you have a question?
Yeah, we are getting a considerable amount of phone calls to our office from our residents that are living in apartment buildings downtown that are above the first floor. They know they're in Zone A, but whether that is really a required mandatory evacuation for them. And likewise, we're getting the same inquiries from some of our businesses. We have a hotel downtown that recognizes they're in Zone A, but their corporate office is saying they want them to stay. They want them to be open and available to take guests during this period in time. So if you could help clarify some of that.
Sure, Mary. Thanks for the question. All we can say really is that the governor enacted a mandatory evacuation, so it will be a personal decision as far as whether they leave or not. We're not gonna go against any other orders to that degree. Okay.
May I, Jim?
Please.
I would just add to that, you may be on the second or third floor, but that doesn't mean we can come and help you if you need help.
Acknowledged.
So let me just thank all of you for coming. I do want, again, to acknowledge to my council colleagues who are very proactive, Mamie Johnson, Andrew McClellan, Courtney Dahl, the entire council, very proactive, and to the administration and to our community partners, thank you for the partnership and the collaboration. And again, to all the residents, please take the precaution that has been outlined, and we pray that for that it's safety, and we pray that everyone will be well. Thanks for being here.